2023 has been a great year for Tata Motors. Not only did they record their highest sales ever, their passenger EV division sold over 69,000 units, recording 59% growth in last year alone. And clearly, for 2024, they're not pulling any punches because the car next to me marks the second phase of electrification with this Born Electric Gen 2 platform that underpins this car, the all-new Tata Punch EV. And I really do mean all new because despite its structural similarity to the existing ICE Punch, it is new in every possible way.
What are the advantages of having a dedicated EV platform? Manifold, as it turns out. The Gen 2 Active platform is a modular one, which means it can be expanded to include larger battery packs and serve different form factors. Unlike a pure skateboard EV platform, however, it has a second layer serving as a more conventional chassis, while the first layer holds the batteries spread out evenly across the floorboard at right angles. Each battery pack can accommodate more lithium-ion cells than before using cylindrical pouches, which allows for greater range and greater power, even on a car like the Punch with a relatively smaller footprint. Similar only in silhouette to the existing Punch, the EV is an all-new product. Body-wide daytime running LEDs, the absence of a radiator grille, it has all the telltale signs of an EV from Tata Motors.
So when it comes to design changes, as you can see, the entire front end has been redesigned. You don't really have a radiator grille because you don't need one. Underneath this bonnet is actually for the first time a tiny little trunk. So you've got about a 14-liter storage space to just store away charging cables, etc. For the first time, you also have the charging port up front. This actually opens automatically, and that's a standard feature. All you got to do is press a little button and this just pops out. Of course, it has to be shut manually. So this being a ground-up EV design, it doesn't actually share that much with the existing ICE Punch, except of course for its silhouette. It also gets the same ground clearance, the same tire size, the same distance between the wheel wells and the tires, although these new 16-inch alloys are all new. And the reason behind it is that the Punch in its existing form was optimally designed to go off-road, not extensively, but at least take on the abuse offered by broken, battered roads. So they didn't want the EV buyer to compromise on any of those factors. As a result, they've managed to stow away the battery packs in such a way that it doesn't compromise interior space.
Still, unlike the flared nostril headlamps of the ICE version, the vertical headlamp units on the EV make for a much more proportionate and neat design. It's nailed the brief for what a 2024 subcompact SUV EV should look like. And on the inside, it seems to have nailed what an electric subcompact SUV should feel like as well.
Right, so those of you familiar with the Nexon EV will find a lot of similarities in overall design and layout. Of course, this is the first time a Punch gets all these features, and that's what makes it exciting. You get this 10.2-inch floating touchscreen. You get another 10.2-inch instrument cluster. You get this all-new steering design, which is something of a trademark Tata Motors. It's this two-spoke design that's kind of inspired by handheld gaming devices, and also is a bit of a throwback to 90s Tatas. So those signatures are now found in the Punch EV. You get a wireless charging dock, you get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, both wireless. And what's really nice is that you get this 360-degree camera function, which is again all new to the Tata Punch EV. You get these touch-sensitive buttons. They're not actual sort of tactile buttons, but they've got enough logos on this glossy black structure. So you just have to press this 360 thing, and of course you can view a 3D model of the car in relation to its surroundings. So you can actually press on individual cameras in each corner, and that allows you to see your surroundings a lot better. You know, it was not too long ago that this feature actually debuted in Land Rover, so it's really great to see it trickle down all the way to mass market EVs like the Punch. and that really helps elevate it from its competition, which at this point I don't really see anything standing in its way. Even the Tiago EV is now purely a budget consideration, because even the base level Punch will offer a bit more. You get this dual knob, much like you did with the Nexon EV. I would still prefer a knob, but they do have to manage costs, and for what it's worth, it feels a lot more tactile, it feels a lot more solid than it does on the Tiago, Tigor EV, etc. You can even just swirl it like this and it quickly goes into drive. So it's more reactive than in the past. Driving modes are now accessed through 2 buttons here. So you get sport mode, you get an eco mode. Also, of course, modulate your regenerative braking, not with a button as you did with the Tiago EV and the older models of the Nexon, but now with these really nice metallic finished paddle shifters, and again really amps up the premium quality. Overall fit and finish is actually quite nice. You get ventilated seats, you get a panoramic sunroof as an optional extra, but you do get voice activations.
You also get hill descent control and a native app featuring a variety of streaming services and games to keep your co-passenger entertained during heavy traffic and or on stakeouts.
Of course, what will truly determine how successful this car is, how dynamic it is, how its range holds up. Tata's battery tech has always been really solid, and that's one of the reasons it's become such a prominent player in the EV space in such a short while. Remember, the existing ICE Punch has a 5-star safety rating, so we kind of expect this to have the same. It's kind of designed for the same thing, and as such you get 6 airbags as standard for the first time, and an incredible feature in the Punch. But we see more and more manufacturers sort of take this line of thought very seriously. Tata, of course, was one of the first ones to really hammer down on the safety front, and that's allowed them to take a lead, particularly in the EV division as well. So with all that out of the way, now let's find out what this thing drives like. It's something I've been very curious about, so let's hit the road. Alright, so let's get the basics out of the way. First, you get 2 battery pack options, one being the lower end 25 kilowatt hour one, and the other being the 35 kilowatt hour long range version, which is what we have here. And this puts out 122 bhp of power, which means the Punch finally isn't lacking punch. It was one of the biggest chinks in its armor, and it has been addressed, because this thing, especially in sport mode, really goes for it. It's not neck-snappingly quick, it's not like whiplash inducing, but there's a very steady surge of power that you get, which is actually better than any other Tata EV I've driven. And that's primarily, again, down to this active EV platform that they have, because it's been designed in such a way. It's so lightweight, it's so minimalistic. Granted, it's not exactly a dedicated skateboard chassis. We're going to see that with the Gen 3 architecture, but it kind of cuts down the fluff, and it is still a pure EV architecture. So the placement of the batteries, the lower center of gravity, the management of its weight, everything has been done in a way that makes this car just feel a lot more dynamic, a lot more eager. You get plenty of wheel spin in sport mode because you can just rev all the way. And it's actually quite exciting. It even corners incredibly well. And that isn't even something that needs to be part of its brief. For the most part, people are going to go for the 25 kilowatt hour version, because that makes for a more affordable car and ideal for city purposes. Now, the Punch EV is really just a taste of what this active EV architecture is going to feature. In upcoming models, we're going to see level 2 ADAS functions, and that's essentially the curve. We're going to see fast charging capability going up to 150 kilowatts. You even get a 7.2 kilowatt AC charger with this, should you opt for it. Of course, that is 50,000 bucks extra. There's just so much packed in this car that's just so good. Starting with the fact that this 35 kilowatt hour battery, which has 122 horsepower and 190 newton meters of torque. And that means that the Punch can finally live up to its name. Put it in sport mode as I have right now, and just the supply of power and torque is constant and never ending. It actually feels like you're kind of scratching the surface when you tap the throttle, and that's a really good feeling. Another thing I really like is this car's ability to generate wheel spin from a standstill. Granted, you have to be in sport mode for it to be able to utilize the full rev range, but it's still exciting every single time, and that's not something you can say about front wheel drive vehicles, and that's not something you can say about EVs.
At least not EVs in this particular segment.
My 2 cents on it, well, it seems to be a dramatic improvement over both the Tiago and the Nexon EV. Don't get me wrong, the Nexon EV is very wholesome, and I'm sure it hits all the right notes as an urban compact SUV. But this thing, as an urban subcompact SUV, its proportions are just so ideally suited for city driving. And yet it feels solid, it feels spacious. You don't feel like there's any kind of compromise. It just goes. It's the ideal version of the Tata Punch. And it's not surprising that the ideal version is an electric one. Yes, most people are going to go for the 25 kilowatt hour version because that's cheaper and that's really enough range if you're looking to just drive a car for everyday commuting purposes. But if you were to pay a little extra, you'd get a 35 kilowatt hour battery, which not only doesn't really need to be charged more than twice a week, max thrice, and that is if you are covering very long distances, every day. But in a 5-day work week, honestly, a single charge should be enough. I can charge it as often as I want to. Charging is not an issue. Then, well, you get something where you just don't have to worry about range. So you can extract as much performance out of it, have as much fun driving it, enjoy the experience without really thinking about how soon you're going to have to recharge. The Tata Punch seems so in tune with the budding infrastructure that we're seeing in India right now. Give it a clean, open road and it absolutely thrives. It soars. And when you run out of such a road and inevitably come across something absolutely battered and cratered, well, it can take that on too. In many ways, the Tata Punch is the car of the moment. It is the city car most in line with India's infrastructure at the moment.
As an added bonus, Tata Motors has also kept the Punch's off-roading abilities in mind. While this is still a front-mounted motor and therefore a front-wheel drive car, the Punch's boulder-friendly entry and departure angles ensure that the end of the road doesn't necessitate the end of the journey. And with features like hill descent control, it can take on some pretty steep crests and troughs. For a company that commands 72% of the EV market, the Punch EV is Tata's way to future-proof itself when more competition from mass-market brands starts to arrive towards the end of the year. For the moment, however, the Punch is easily the best EV in its segment, one that is in no danger of being upstaged anytime soon.